Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, the podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option. And I'm posting my regular recruiting content over on that site. The link is also in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. Also, I'm appearing on Monday nights with Chris Griffin from the Horns Down podcast. We're doing a show we call Recruit Intel. It's a YouTube live stream, which has the Q&A functionality. So if you join, you can ask me whatever recruiting question you've ever wanted to ask me. And I'm also appearing on Thursday nights. The Recruit Intel show is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. And then I'm also appearing Thursday nights with Chris Griffin again and Jason Watkins from the Hall of Fame podcast. We do a show we call Sooner Intel, where we're discussing OU season and the major topics around OU's football program. So to get all of that content, the easiest way to do it is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You do this simply by going to youtube.com. In the search box at the very top, type in Sooners 360, no space, click search. The first entry that'll come up will be my channel, the link to my channel. You can click subscribe there, and then you'll get notifications about when live streams are occurring. And in your YouTube feed, you'll get replays of live stream events if you can't participate live. And that's where, and you'll also be able to find all of my recruiting shows and content there. We'll also continue to do this show Wednesday nights, early Thursday morning. It's just crossed midnight here in Atlanta, and we'll be doing that show. And that show will be on YouTube and on the audio platform. The audio podcast platforms we've always been on. So don't worry, that show's not going anywhere. So with all the marketing material out the way with, let's go to episode 163. Class of 2028 takes center stage. So we don't have the big news like we've had the last couple of episodes where, we had Isaac Coffrin verbal to OU, and then we had to talk about the Mekhi Rhodes decommit. So we don't have any news like that. So I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks that I felt like during spring practice, OU would have a sort of steady flow of kids coming in 2028, maybe some 2027 kids, but mostly 2028. And you'd start seeing some targets for 2028 make their way to Norman, watch OU practice, and kind of get a day with the OU coaches, with their sort of OU recruiting coaches. Get some time with Jim Nagy and his staff as well. Just kind of setting the framework for recruiting those talented athletes over the next 20 months until signing day, December signing day 2027. I know that 2026 December is still out there, but recruiting never stops. So that's why I have a podcast. So in the last sort of week, OU has had a number of guys visit for the 2028 class. I'm quickly just going to review the guys visiting and give you some perspective on it, because I think there were some fairly important names that came on campus that probably, at least several of them will probably be names that we follow for the next 20 months. The first name is Grant Bowen. He's from Illinois. He is a athlete, linebacker, tight end, depending upon what recruiting service you follow and look at. He visited practice last week. Bowen is 6'4", 220. And in the social media post, he referenced Coach Dreiling, kind of was taking him around on his visit. So at least right now, it looks like OU is recruiting Bowen at linebacker. I've had a chance. I looked at Bowen's film back when OU offered him. It's really good. He's a tall, rangy, athletic linebacker, makes plays all over the field, has a fantastic frame. He's from the upper Midwest, a little bit like Cole Sullivan. He's from Ohio. So it's hard not to make a Cole Sullivan type comp because of their size and ahead of the part of the country they're from. So it looks like he's probably a middle linebacker that OU's middle linebacker target for the Sooners. Again, we'll see how far this goes. OU doesn't generally get a lot of players from Illinois. They have in the past. They certainly have signed players from the land of Lincoln, but him visiting OU specifically and kind of getting a day with OU staff and with OU, obviously their national brand being as strong as it's been in probably 6 years with the playoff run that OU had last year, especially for defenders. They just kept hearing every week, elite Sooner defense, elite Sooner defense, elite Sooner defense. So I think Bowen visiting from Illinois is a great sign that OU will try and stay involved with him and continue to work him to perhaps come to a game this fall. I don't know that he's got an offer. He's got lots of offers. He's like a top 300 kid right now, top 200. His film certainly, his sophomore film certainly justifies that. So we'll see. I don't think he'll be a summer camp visitor, but he might come. It's definitely something OU is pushing for their top recruits, even when they have offers. Come work out with our coaches, get coached by our staff, see how we really do business. So that's definitely a possibility for Grant Bowen, but definitely a name to track at linebacker for 2028. Then Connor Arant from Bixby also visited last week. Connor is listed as a defensive end, tight end. He's right now he's listed at 6'6", 230. And when you see him standing next to Jason Witten, those numbers seem pretty accurate. Same thing with Grant Bowen. When in the photos that he posts, I'd say he's every bit 6'3", 6'4" as well. Arant is likely going to be a top 200 4-star type prospect. And again, in social media, he indicated that it seemed like Jason Witten was kind of showing Arant around. So that puts him at probably a tight end for the Sooners. His film from Bixby at both defensive end and tight end from last fall is excellent. Just an excellent looking prospect. He definitely has the frame to be 6'6", 250 plus by the time he ends up in Norman and playing college football. So, you had Ridge James visit a couple of weeks ago, the number 2 tight end in the country from Missouri, now who's 6'5", 235. Now you've got Connor Arant visiting, who's 6'6", 230. And it's night and day, the talent level that Jason Witten is able to get on campus at tight end for the Sooners, just even for unofficial visits. And OU probably, I'm not sure when he'll be on campus, but Breck Brady, a guy I've talked about a couple of times, has moved to Mustang, and I think he's going to get an OU offer as well. He's Ricky Brady's kid. He's 6'5", 6'6", 245, 250 already. So already, so that's 3, big tight ends, athletic tight ends that would seem to be on OU's radar for 2028 already. And again, a night and day difference. I think all 3 of those guys. I think Breck Brady is quite possibly a top 200, top 300 type talent as well. So getting Arant on campus, big sign for OU. Obviously, Caden Penny is committed to the Sooners and should sign in December. That gives OU a hook at Bixby. And Arant is probably the next big name. Is the next big name for Bixby. Then this week on Tuesday, OU had 2 significant visitors. The first is a name I've talked about quite a bit before, and it is 2028 athlete Camion Compton-Nero from Rejoice Christian in Tulsa. He was back on campus on Tuesday. Compton-Nero is the quarterback teammate of OU wide receiver signee Xavier Okafweleze. And with Xavier, or ZZ as he likes to be called, I think they attended something like 5 or 6 OU games last fall. So OU's in great shape with Cam. he's a top 50 talent, could easily be a 5-star talent by this time next year. He's already committed to playing in the Navy All-American game as an underclassman in January. And he's got offers from everybody, and he's just an elite talent. Now, the interesting thing about Compton Nero's visit is he got to meet Robert Spears Jennings, who I think was maybe just back in Norman, maybe he's working out, not quite sure. But Robert Spears Jennings was at OU practice and watching OU practice. Corey Heineke, a lot of the guys going into draft have been around OU practice this spring, and they got a photo together. And we know from the NFL Combine that Robert Spears Jennings is 6'2", 205. That's as close to a measurables fact as we have out there for guys that go to the Combine. Well, Camion, or Cam, I believe he probably goes by Cam, I think. That's what Parker Thune was saying earlier today. He's looks 2 inches taller than Jennings, side by side. And his frame probably, I think he was probably around 6'2", 175 last summer when he broke out at the OU summer camp and got his offer. I bet he's 6'3", 6'4", 185 pounds, 190. And I would imagine, and he's got a huge wingspan. I'd imagine by the time, he ends up wherever he's going to go, that he's 6'3", 200, 205, kind of easy, and probably could play at college around 210. Just a ridiculous athlete, maybe kind of a, the Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. If he continues growing like this, he maybe could be like somebody like Kyle Hamilton, the Notre Dame safety who plays for the Ravens, who I think is like 6'3", 215, and is kind of an all-pro. I think Camion could be heading that direction in terms of a prospect. I love where OU is currently with Camion. And I know OU just lost their only 2028 commit in Micah Rhodes, but Camion wouldn't be a shock if in the summer, if Camion came and camped with OU and maybe started the 2028 class with a new first verbal commitment. But again, it's just shocking to see his frame and his size next to a muscled up in elite shape Robert Spears Jennings, who we know went to the Combine, ran a 4.3. So just watching this kid next to, he's probably 16, maybe 17 at most, next to a 22-year-old guy who just put on an elite athletic showing at the NFL Combine. So great for him to come back on campus. Great for him to be here. I bet he attends a number of Sooner games this fall, hanging out with his friend, with his buddy Xavier. So again, good to see him on campus. Good to see OU making that connection. And again, I think safety is probably where he would play at OU. He plays quarterback for Rejoice just because he's the best athlete they have. But I think probably safety would be where he would be. Although, again, if he has a fantastic year this fall at quarterback, I think OU would probably be open to anything. But most folks have him. The recruiting services have him as an athlete. OU's been pretty. When he was at OU summer camp, he played DB. So OU's been pretty solid in that we want him at safe. We think safety DB is his future, and it looks like a fantastic future. Then 2028 cornerback or safety Jordan Hicks from California visited. He's been making the rounds. He has a lot of big-time offers. He's a top 200 4-star guy right now on Rivals. He's 6'1", 180 pounds. He has an OU offer from way back. I'm pretty sure this is the first time he visited Norman, but he was glowing in terms of his social media reaction to that visit, in terms of images he posted, talk about that fact he'll be back to OU, loved his OU visit. Parker Thune has a very interesting interview with him on their pay site. I'm not going to talk about that. It's just there. you have an OU Insider account, go read it, or a Rivals account since they combined. But it's an interesting interview, really good, interesting interview in terms of where OU might be with Hicks moving forward. In addition, just right after he posted it, OU verbal, Elijah Harmon, the defensive tackle verbal from California, was all over Hicks, saying Boomer Sooner, come to OU. So I wonder if there's a connection there. If they know each other, that wouldn't be a shock. And again, Hicks is I watched his film, and he is an elite-looking corner. Physical, good frame, and just baiting QBs into throwing interceptions. He has a couple of pick sixes, multiple interceptions start his highlight reel where he's reading quarterbacks, he's reading what's going on, and is just kind of baiting them into throws that he picks off. He's jumping in front of passes. So I think top 200 is probably. I don't see him moving out of that range, not with his frame and his ability. Some services think he might be a safety, but based upon his recruiting visit, looks like Lamar Morgan's taking the lead on that. And it wouldn't shock me if Lamar Morgan was already recruiting Jordan from Michigan, so that they're not starting from scratch either. So that's the four big names that visited. I think all four of those guys could right now look like takes for the Sooners, would be guys that they'd have as part of the class. I know Cam and Hicks have offers, and Arant, and they all have offers, and they all fit. At the very minimum, they all check the physical traits box that Jim Nagy wants. Now, obviously, they only have sophomore film, so some things need to shake out there. But when you're talking about frames and athleticism, they all, a 6'1" cornerback, check. 6'3", 200-pound safety, athletic safety, check. 6'6", 230-pound tight end, check. And then a 6'4", 220-pound, 215-pound linebacker with serious athleticism, check. So these are the kind of things that kind of fly under the radar a little bit. But to have four of those kids come in over the last week is a pretty significant addition. There's one other guy, I'm not sure where he stands with OU. I'm not sure if he has an OU offer or not. But Chase Hancock from Arkansas visited last week. He's a slot receiver. He's listed at 5'10", 170. And he's got really good film from his sophomore year. He has excellent agility, short distance kind of acceleration. And he's also flashing long speed as a deep threat as well. And he's sort of fitting the trend that we're a little bit seeing at wide receiver, where OU's kind of focused on, they're focused on Jasir Rogers, Jaden Petit, and then they have and then if you're not in one of those two buckets, then you're kind of in the Elijah Thomas, Daniel Odom kind of bucket, where you're 6'1", can play around 200 pounds, 195, 200 pounds. So you're sort of in that area. And you see that a little bit with the recruiting class OU has, where Graydon Howell and DeMar DeZern are both Rogers, Satania type speedsters, speed, acceleration, playmaking. And then you got Trayvon Hall, who's 6 foot, 180 pounds right now, probably could be sort of a 185, 190, 195 maybe, just physical, does a little bit of everything. If you want to use a kind of a comp, maybe a Trell, in a couple of years, is he like a Trell Harris type? So that's definitely, Hancock definitely fits in that Jasir Rogers, DeMar DeZern, Graydon Howell kind of player, Isaiah Satania looking kind of player. So I don't have any kind of a ranking, a feel for a ranking on him, but he was back, obviously came to Norman, had a good visit, and OU's guys aren't coming in on random practice days without some level of interest from the Sooners. So when we think about the 2028 momentum OU's been able to build over the last 3 weeks since Future Freaks, which was in early March, OU has had 7 top 2028 targets take visits. Obviously, Kellen Hall came in for Future Freaks. He's the number one defensive tackle in 2028. OU's going to battle all of college football for him, but he's been in Norman a bunch of times. OU's strongly in that battle. Then obviously last week when Micah Rhodes came up, and that didn't go well. We talked about that already. Romani Edwards came up, top offensive tackle. And then Damarian Mays, top wide receiver, Romani Edwards from the Houston area. And then Damarian Mays from the Dallas area, elite-looking wide receiver, 6'3", 200 pounds. So, and then 4 of the guys above are OU offers and guys I think there would be takes. So when you have top targets, guys verbal commitments I think OU would take today. They would take all 7 of these kids today, I believe. When you can get that many kids on campus during spring, that's a huge advantage. Every visit counts, and they're able to see OU working out, watch OU's practice, know what the standard is at OU, know how OU coaches. So and if they want to, their representation can have a quick talk with Jim Nagy while they're in town and just get a feel for how OU operates from that side of the business. So that's why this 2028 group was really the news of the last week. And that's why I say it appears that 2028 is starting to come to the forefront. As 2027, it would be incorrect to say that it's winding down, but OU has 20 commitments, has 5 or 6 guys that they probably lead on. So OU's starting to build their 45 to 50 legit targets for 2027 that they want to focus on. So last week we talked about a running back reset. OU kind of moving away from Micah Rhodes, and I hypothesized that a big part of this was probably because Dalen McCullough wanted to find his back, his guy, and he leans towards more of a bigger back. The buzz that we keep hearing from multiple sources I've heard from, and also this is stuff that you'll hear from podcasts by OU Insider and Sooner Scoop, is that McCullough badly wants Keldred Benn, loves Keldred Benn. And of course, Keldred Benn's 5'11", 225, so he fits that bigger power back model. So I'm just going to give you 2 guys, and based upon some feedback I got that might fit. They have OU offers that they might fit where OU might be moving forward. So I've heard McCullough wants a power back or a speed or a back with elite speed, home run speed. And Micah Rhodes is a really good back, but he's on a big back. Can't just get bigger. And I'm not sure that he has home run speed. He has excellent speed. He has long runs. Playing last fall, he did great, but he doesn't have like home run speed or elite home run speed. So the 2 names that throw from just perusing the offer list that seem to might make some sense are Zach Bellew from Georgia. He's 5'11", 210. I just watched his high school film again. It's very Samaje Perine-like. He's a big, physical, thick kid. He's got some pace to him. He's hard to bring down. He's got sort of that short. He's got that quick feet, able to find the gap, explode, and then he's a handful to bring down. And then there's a name from Ohio. He's an athlete, but he plays running back and free safety. If OU wanted to look at him at running back, his name is Carte Lagon. He's 6'1", 185, and he has home run speed. He is a blazer. So when you think about the Notre Dame backs, you think about Jeremiah Love, who's 6 foot, 205, probably played around 210, and he's a 4'3" guy. Then you think about Audric Ostame. He's 5'11", 225. So you kind of see 2 models there of 2 guys that might fit what McCullough wants to do. But then again, he may just wait and see junior film. He's like, well, I want to see junior film of these guys. I want to see some guys in person. So we could have a little of that as well. So we'll see. All right. We talked last week about a wild new offer, a guy with just an absolute elite name, the defensive end from Utah, Uhila Wolfgram from Utah, 6'3", 245, defensive end, burst, physicality, lot of programs are offering him. And right now, Scoop is reporting that he will visit for OU spring game. 247 is reporting that he set up an OU official visit. I imagine that official visit will probably be the same weekend that OU brings in Crew Jones and Bodie Sparrow from Utah as well. And really, Wolfgram would be an interesting third defensive end to go with Crew Jones. And OU is pushing heavily for Miles Smith from Michigan. So if you added those three guys together, that would be about as complete a variety of defensive ends as I think OU could really recruit. Other than that, I just got a couple of final notes for you. OU's had two 2029 offensive linemen visit. The first was Brock Robinson, who is from the Dallas area. He visited on Tuesday. Robinson is listed on his Huddle profile and social media information at 6'3.5", 270. His freshman film shows him playing center, guard, and tackle, mostly center. He's doing a really good job as a high school freshman doing that. This is a brand new name for me to track moving forward. And ideally, he would be at OU summer camp event, a 2029 kid, getting a chance to coach him, see him in person, work him out is kind of ideal in how OU really wants to use their summer camp process. Then last week, Wyatt Powers, also from Dallas, he plays for a small private school in the Dallas area, I think. He's listed at 6'6", 250. I looked at his film. He plays right tackle as a freshman. Now, it's freshman film, so you always got to have that lens on. But you can see an athletic offensive tackle with a very projectable frame. He's long, big wingspan, athletic, really good in pass pro, fairly good at run blocking. But again, he's playing offensive tackle at 250. This is another player to track and watch and see if he attends OU's summer camp sessions. But the fact that they came to Norman, I've already invested time with Bill. Bill has already has been tipped off that these are guys to track. It's interesting and bodes well for OU wanting to land offensive linemen in every class. Having these two guys, and there's a couple of 29 offensive linemen in state as well that would be really interesting. One, I believe, is Devin Smith from the Tulsa area, and the other one is Jimmy Wilkinson's kid, who's just this monstrously 6'7", 295 kid. I think he's at Carl Albert. But yeah, so Jimmy Wilkinson's kid is also part of that 29 group. Hopefully those guys are all at the OU summer camp. We can get a sneak preview perhaps of some 2029 offensive line targets. Just a reminder, there's two big events coming up, which will drive the podcast moving for the next couple of weeks. The first one is OU has a scrimmage scheduled for April 11th, or at least it was scheduled for April 11th. That's the last I heard, and that's the last story floating around. And OU is expected to have a bunch of names visiting. I would imagine to be, again, a bias towards 2028. There'll be some 2027 kids there. OU's still looking to upgrade that, still always looking to add big name players they want. Supposedly Quinton Burrell from Illinois, the big wide receiver target, should be one of those guys. This is OU's probably one and only chance to really get involved in that recruiting. But there'll be other names there, so we'll have social media traffic from all of that. We'll have names to track. We'll be talking about that next Wednesday. Then, obviously, the spring game is coming up. I think OU will have as many 2027 verbals as possible there. I imagine they'll try and get guys. They'll try and see if Gus Corsair can come down, see if perhaps Gabriel Osborne can come watch the game, hang out with the other verbals from the class. I mean, Cooper Hackett and Caden Penny, those guys are locks. Maybe Ben Kolar will be on campus for the spring game. You're just going to see a lot of names, but you're also going to see a lot of 28 and 2029 names. So, Josh McCuistion on their Scoop podcast said he thought OU could have as many as 40 to 50 kids on campus, which would be hopefully great weather, a really exciting spring game with a great crowd. OU just able to use that again as a huge marketing piece for the program and a huge marketing piece for bringing in unofficial kids on visits and checking in. So, again, I think Wolfram should be there. Yahila Wolfram should be there. Again, it's going to be a big recruiting. It'll be a big recruiting piece for the Sooners. And I know you, after that, will then be able to do the evaluations and the scouting off campus that I talked about. And I think OU's scouting staff should be freed up to actually participate in that off campus scouting. So thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you are listening to me on an audio platform like Spotify or iTunes. And don't forget to leave a positive rating. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way for me to grow the channel, get more subscribers, get these videos pushed out to more Sooner fans. Again, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360 817 to subscribe for even more recruiting content. Sooners 360 on Patreon directly supports this podcast, keeps this podcast free, keeps it going. So if you like this podcast, please consider subscribing to Patreon. There's a free trial option so you can kind of figure out if it's for you or not. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow night with Chris Griffin. We'll be doing updates on Owen Heineke and some spring thoughts. And then we'll be back Monday night to talk about, do a live Q&A and talk about more recruiting. So see you next week. And thanks for listening.